Dan Bublitz Comedy Productions.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Wild, yeah, super
Thorough.
paranoid. Well, I try to be very thorough. You didn't get the thorough be a guest on the podcast
Right.
because we did this last minute
We
last
did.
night, and
We
I didn't
did.
have a chance to send you the email because I was out and about, and
Right.
I didn't get home until super early this morning.
I was emailing you or I was messaging you from a show. So
Oh yeah, see,
Yeah.
and I was just out on the town. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna go out tonight. So,
I was like, I don't have anything to do tomorrow. What would be fun to do tomorrow?
well, actually, and I'm glad that you reached out to me. And to remind me, because I'll reach out to people and we'll talk about getting it set up, and then you get so busy with everything else, and then it's like easy that it just slips your mind.
For sure.
And I was thinking about this because I'm like, God, I got to get some guests in here because I've only got a handful of episodes in the bank.
Yeah.
It worked out that you reached out to me because it reminded me. I was like, oh yeah, we were trying to set something up.
For sure. I ran a podcast for maybe 2 years, 3 years, and the guest thing is a bitch.
It is. I
really
mean,
is.
honestly, that's one of my biggest pet peeves with my podcast is having to find guests and book guests and do all the scheduling and I love having the conversations with them.
For sure.
That part is great. I
Yeah.
love having guests. I love talking to them about comedy and bombing and all that, but everything else around the podcast, all the editing, the booking, the scheduling, all the unfun stuff. Not a fan.
No. And like if one person said one thing that you were like, oh, I got to take that out, but there's like 3 different microphones being recorded and you have to like pick that one little thing they said and try,
And then try to match everybody else's.
Oh, it's such a pain in the ass. And it's like the people who listen, I don't know. That's why whenever I see a critical commenter on Facebook, I'm like, you don't even know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, you don't even know how much work that tiny little clip that you're all, like this.
This is stupid.
This is dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking. I was thinking about that today, too. It's just like you see in our field, in our industry, you see this happen where, comics will get something and then other comics will shit on them because they got said things. And it's like, man, just why?
Yeah.
Why are you going to bring it down? Like, there's no point in it. Like,
I will give regular people a pass, civilians a pass, but if other comics are doing that shit,
oh yeah,
shut the fuck up. You're projecting.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you're doing.
Projecting insecurities and jealousy and all the things. And
That's all a lot of them do. That's why you posted that thing one time about people not promoting shows, and I'm like, most comics are bad people, and that's just it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's
how it is.
It boggles my mind. You get and I don't know if you produce anymore right now. I know you used to, so you probably run into this where you get hit up by people that just want to be on your show. They're like, put me on your show, and then you put them on the show and they don't even talk about the show. And it's like, well, if you were so eager to be on my show, I mean, promoting a show is not that hard. It's not like you have to go door to door and hand out flyers and go out on a street team to do it.
I think I've been noticing this a lot lately with myself because I'm in therapy and I'm doing the whole thing. And I notice with the comics.
Is your therapist yourself? Or are you doing self?
No, no. I hate it when comics are like, comedy's my therapy. No, you need a therapist that went to school that can help you.
Somebody that knows what they're talking
comedy
about.
is not your therapy, and it's really obvious.
It's your release, not your therapy.
Comedies, your therapy is meaning that like everyone is laughing at your mental illness. That's what that means.
Essentially, yeah.
And it's kind of gross. Yeah, it's kind of gross. After I see it, like after a while, because I've met some really, really quote unquote successful comedians, that you would look on the outside and you would be like, wow, they're so successful and they're the most miserable people.
Oh, yeah.
They're so
absolutely.
sad.
Yeah.
They're so
sad, broken.
Yeah.
All the things.
And I'm like, we're just laughing and like everyone's dying laughing. And I'm like, they're being really real right now. That's really real pain.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, you brought up mental health, and it is a plague, especially, I mean, it's a plague just in general.
Oh, for sure.
Right now, especially in America, but in our industry as well. I mean, you look, there's so many comedians that, either die from, suicide or drug overdoses or whatever, whatever it is. But that there's a lot of that. It seems like there's a lot more of it in comedy than any other entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
Form of entertainment.
Well, and I think that people see something that other people have and they want it so bad and they don't know why. Mm-hmm. Like, why do you want that? Like, I see road comics and I don't want that.
Oh, I thought I wanted that.
I thought I wanted it too.
And then I did the road a lot.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I don't want to be taken advantage by a booker in a venue and get paid low money and have to sleep in my car. Mm-hmm. So, and then maybe sell some merch. No, thank you.
Yeah. Well, and it's a beautiful thing. Comedy is amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
I love making people laugh, and I'll always do it forever. I am so jealous of the people that can quit. I wish I could. It's amazing. Like, if you're just like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I always get sucked back in.
I do too. And I don't think I've ever quit where I was like, I'm done. I've definitely scaled back. Mm-hmm. Like right now, I'm scaled back.
For sure.
I just, when I worked the road pretty hard, the first year that I was here in Colorado and a year and a half prior to that, I was just always trying to work the road and do these road gigs, and I was just like, what for?
Yeah.
Because then the other thing, and like I said, I love doing comedy, but the other thing, you miss everything. Mm-hmm. You can't. You either choose go make money or don't make money and then go hang out with friends and family. And so it definitely wears on those relationships as well.
For sure. Well, and I'm getting to the point now where I just perform where I have family. I apply to the festivals. Like, I'm going to the North Carolina Comedy Festival. That's where my family is.
You're going there?
Yeah.
What days are you going?
Oh, I'm not sure yet. I think it's like the 7th and the... I don't know. You're in it too,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. I'll be there.
Be fun.
Yeah. I'm going to be out there. When are you going? Do you know? Have you decided?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm going to be there for like 2 weeks just because my family's there.
Yeah.
But I think I have 2 or 3 shows at the Idiot Box.
Okay. Are your family where in North Carolina?
They're in Jacksonville, North Carolina. So it's about 2 hours. But my mom comes for the shows and we get a hotel and we stay in Greensboro. And then I just go, because I mainly go home to see my nephew and see him grow up and stuff. And he's 7, so he can't come to the shows. Mm-hmm. So I kind of hate it because I don't get to do all the festival stuff.
Yeah, because you got to combine family stuff.
But it's like I want to do both so bad.
Same. I'm going, I don't have family, but I have some friends that live in Charlotte now.
Nice.
Both of them are comedians, but I'm going out for a week. And I've only got like 2 shows on the festival, but I'm going out so I can hang out with my buddy Will, who him and his wife moved there a couple years ago. And then my other friend Brandon just moved there last April. So I'm just going for a week so I can hang out with him, do the festival, and then also hang out with my buddy Brandon a little bit too.
Yeah.
So I don't. So I'm making it.
Do that more.
I'm making a workation.
Yeah.
But more so the vacation part. You know? I'm just like, because sure, I could go, because that's a long festival. I could go to the festival the whole time I'm out there if I wanted to. But I'm like, I'm going to go do my shows, but I want to mostly come out here early so I can hang out with some friends that I haven't seen in a while.
Nancy Norton was talking about that to me one time, about how, like, whenever you're on the road, just pretend that you're on a staycation and try to find the trails and try to find, bring your bike and try to...
I think, and that's excellent advice. I think I've been trying to get that way myself, where it's like, don't just sit in your hotel room being sad or wherever you're staying, like get out, try to explore. But sometimes it's hard to do that when you're doing one-nighters, because you don't have time to really, it's do your show, sleep, get up, drive to the next show, do the show, sleep, and it's just rinse, repeat. And it's hard to like make them, but if you can make the time for that, try to stop at some of the attractions along the way and things like that.
And I mean, we all travel so much that it's like, I don't know. I try to find the local stuff.
I do too.
It's so hard now.
It can be.
Because there's so many, there's just Walmarts everywhere. I'm from Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's a military town. It's a Marine town. And it's basically like being in a strip mall. There's every chain,
Do you come from a military family as well?
I do, but neither of my neither of my parents are military.
Oh,
my grandparents were.
Oh, your grandparents were. Okay.
So that's how my parents met there, and they just stayed there.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, but it's just a town with a bunch of chains. You know, like when the military gets paid, payday is nuts.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, and then they, a lot of the bases have commissaries that people can go shop on. They're basically just like a Walmart, but on the base. Yeah, essentially.
it's and so like you try to find the local stuff, and there's like some amazing local restaurants and seafood and stuff like that. But when you try to find that everywhere, and I've noticed too, whenever I travel, the locals don't do the fun local thing. They don't.
Well, of course not.
They don't do it ever
because it's not fun anymore to them. They've probably done it once or twice, and they're like, "Well, that's good. I don't need to do it."
I worked at a lobster pound in Maine, and the owner of the campground in the lobster pound absolutely hated lobster. He was like, "I don't know why people eat it. It's so gross." He would like watch people eat it and just be so grossed out.
But yet he was selling it. That's so funny. But there you go. I mean,
he's like, "I'm not eating those bugs."
You can tell that's a brain of a smart business person, because they're like, I don't like it, but the world does, so I'm gonna cash in on that opportunity.
Gonna cash on people just drinking butter.
Yeah, pretty much. Do you like lobster?
Love lobster. Love it. Oh man, I loved working at the lobster pound too. I was actually talking to my friend the other day how I used to put pens in their claws and make them look like they were at the office. They would get so mad their paperwork wasn't done.
No, that's
Well, because I was in there, I would have to sit in there for hours. Like I work camped. If you worked for the campground, you got to park your RV for free.
Oh, okay, nice.
So I would do like summer work camping. And so I'd have to sit in there for hours, bored by myself. So I started playing with the lobsters.
Something to do, I guess.
Yeah, there was nothing else to do.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I'm not a fan of lobster, and I've even had like some of the best lobster you can get, which is in Maine.
Yeah.
And I still was just like, no, not for me.
You either like it or you don't.
Yeah, same with crab legs. I'm not a big seafood person in general.
I learned a lot about them, like how to crack them open and do the whole thing. There was a couple, I remember them from Germany, and there were these huge soup dishes of butter, and they were like, "Oh, it's a soup," and they're like drinking it.
No!
I'm like, no. Yeah, they were like eating with a spoon and stuff. I'm like, no, and they're like, it's good. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably real good. I'm sure it's good.
It's good. Not good for you. You probably just took 5 years off your life eating that one bowl of butter.
They're like senior citizens. So I'm like, whatever, just enjoy it. Have fun.
Have fun. That's
I'm over there like helping them crack their lobsters, which is hilarious because like my hands are all in their food. They don't care.
Yeah, they're just like, whatever. We just want to eat this. Yeah, to me, I don't like the texture. That's a big part of it too.
My husband's the same way. He won't.
Texture is... It's all rubbery and just. Ugh.
Do you get sad that other people enjoy it and you don't get to?
No, I don't. I mean, because everybody has different tastes and different things. I mean, there's things that I enjoy that other people don't.
I get jealous. I'm not, Like my mom loves Bloody Marys, and I could never. I was like, oh, it's so gross. But
that's another one.
I choked them down for a while, and now I can do it because I'm like, why do you get to like it? It's not fair.
That's so funny. You're like, why do you get to like it instead? And be like, well, instead of having the attitude of, I don't like it, I'll find something else to like. You're like, no, I want to be like everybody else. I think we just had a breakthrough. Now we know why you do comedy. You're definitely chasing affirmations.
Oh, I've been chasing that dragon for years.
Like, you just want that accepted. You want to be part of the group.
I would just watch people drink Bloody Mary, especially in Charleston, because I was like, they would have Bloody Mary bars and stuff, like bacon. And I'm like, God, drinks with snacks. It just sounds like something I would like.
Oh, absolutely.
But it just tastes like throw up. It's just,
I know. Well, and for me, I'm not a big tequila person. Tequila it wrecks me. I had a couple bad experiences with tequila, so that's one of the main reasons. And I'm not a big tomato juice person. And those are two of the main ingredients. You can
make them with vodka too, but it's a heartburn in the glass.
It is. Absolutely.
It's heartburn.
Yep. Yeah. And I've had, I went to places with people where they're like, oh, you just need to have a good Bloody Mary. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying it's not. I believe you that
this is good. How I can stomach it. It has to have a lot of horseradish. Like, it has to be so hot that I can't.
You just can't taste it.
I can't even think.
Just burns your whole insides.
Because I slowly, because they have oyster shooters in Charleston. And this was like, because I lived there during my drinking days,
Yeah.
So people would take these huge oyster shooter shots with these like giant oysters. And I like oysters too, but I'm like slurping it down like that.
Oh.
Like,
yeah, it's just ugh.
Ugh. But if you put horseradish in it, you can't taste anything.
Either way, I'm still like, oh.
Yeah, it burns
the
your
idea
stomach.
Of like, oh, I even tried. My friend had used to do in the summertime for the 4th of July. He would do crawfish. Boils and tried that and I
suck their heads.
Did not like it. Did not like the technique, the texture, the sounds.
I don't like crawfish because lobster. I think you get a good piece of meat after you fight, but like crayfish and stuff like that, like crawfish, you can't.
Well, no, that's why they have to boil bazillion of them at a time.
And you get like a tiny little piece of meat.
Yeah,
it's not worth it. It's too much work.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
All the other fixins, though, that they boil with it, corn and potatoes and things like that.
And sausage and stuff.
So tasty when it's all boiled together. But the actual crawfish, not for me.
Oh, and Louisiana is great. It's a happy little ghetto.
Okay, I got a couple questions for you. Now that we're talking about this, working the road and traveling and experiencing things and talking about food. So first question, when you've been on the road, what's been one of the or your favorite like local spot thing that you've done, like the local attraction or whatever?
The local attraction. That's a good question. I've done Des Moines a handful of times, and they have a lot of street fairs and stuff, like Korean street fairs. I love those.
Oh, right on.
I love boba tea with the handles. They have little handles on them. And last time I was there for the Desk Comedy Festival. And they had a street fair that I just happened upon. I had like 3 hours and I was walking around in Iowa like, what the hell am I going to do with myself? And I fell upon that street fair and it was so fun. And I watched a bunch of like little kids dancing and that was a great time. I really enjoyed that.
A good street festival.
A good street festival. Nice. I like a good street festival. I like a good farmer's market.
Oh, yeah.
I like a bad farmer's market.
Yeah, just farmers markets in general.
Yeah,
are fun to
Austin
walk around.
has some of the worst farmers markets I've ever been to. It's just a bunch of, my husband puts it, white ladies selling their boredom.
That's a great description.
Yeah.
That's pretty spot on for most farmers markets.
They're really bad. Like some of them are really bad, and you're just like, oh, what? Why did you come out of your house today?
Yeah, it's like, why are you selling makeup?
Right.
Why are you selling makeup at a farmer's market?
Yeah. And so
like, was that made out of a plant?
For sure. I really liked it. I liked Maine. I liked all the national parks and stuff in Maine. Those are fun.
Yeah. National parks in general can be a lot of fun.
I like to find a trail.
Yeah.
And I know it's hilarious, but Iowa had some really beautiful trails when I was out there. Like,
I'm sure there's spots. It's the same thing with like South Dakota. Like you don't think of South Dakota as being a place you could find trails and stuff, or even like in Minnesota, you don't think about that. And there's some beautiful spots out there.
There's
where you
some
can do
nice
some hiking
ones.
And
I have to get outside usually wherever I'm at.
That's good. I try to avoid the outdoors.
Do you?
Because I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Well, like this last weekend, I was on the road and I went out with another comic and we went out to Grand Junction. And we had a show in Palisade and then we had a show in Montrose. And he's a big outdoor person. He was like, we're going to go, he was like planning stuff and we're going to go do this. And I was like, okay, I'm going to play along. But... And I had fun. Not that I didn't have. I had a great time. But I was like, as soon as I knew we were going to go to the river and try to go do some swimming and hiking, I was like, I better make sure I bring the sunblock. And first thing I did when I got down to the river, just covered my body in sunblock.
For sure. I was always the girl that like all the other girls are wearing like 2 pieces and like out, and I'm like pants, huge hat. Yeah, because I don't tan. I just burn.
Yeah, I know. Same. I just burn.
I get back white. Yeah.
Yep.
And I always have a hat and sunblock and all that stuff. I think mental health.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Gotta get the sun.
Yep, that I totally get it. Now I don't mind going and walking and stuff. That's one thing I like to do when I'm on the road. If especially after the drive, one of the first things I do after I get like checked into wherever I'm staying is I go for a walk.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, as I'm driving to wherever, I'm like looking for like, okay, there's a grocery store, there's a convenience store, there's a coffee shop, there's a whatever. And I kind of get an idea where they are. And then I'm like, all right, now I'm here. I'm going to just go explore, but I'm going to do it on foot.
For sure.
And go explore. Because I like going and exploring towns and like, because I like to go to like antique stores and comic book stores and, little shops like that.
I did.
So I always love exploring that kind of stuff.
There was a festival in Paris, Texas, the Tower City Festival, and Paris, Texas has more antique shops. I was like, you guys are like Colorado, except we have weed shops. Like they have so many antique shops. It was the funnest. I went with Greg Cherry and we walked around. We went into every single one. Like we kind of dorked out on it. It was so fun. I got one of those old like Coca-Cola serving trays.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I worked for a 3D movie company, so I got one of those old like M&M movie like toys.
Yep.
You like pull his foot and the M&M comes into the little popcorn box.
Oh yeah.
It's so cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was so fun. I love shit like that.
Yeah. So do I. I mean, obviously, you look around my studio, you can tell.
Yes.
That was funny because the first thing you said when you walked in the studio was, "Oh, you are really a nerd." And the way you said it too.
Some people try to front, and you're like, you really are a nerd. Like you're really not fucking around.
It's funny because the way you said it, you were almost shocked that I was. You were like so surprised.
Some people try to steal identities, but you live it.
I mean, I've been a nerd my whole life. I used to own a comic book store. I've been in this for a while.
Right, so you're an authority.
Exactly.
For sure,
I know some things. I know some things about being a nerd.
Yeah.
As they say, not to sound too hipstery, but I was a nerd before being a nerd was cool.
I've always considered myself more of a dork. Like I'm not into anything nerdy, but I'm not cool at all. Like I don't know stuff, but I'm also don't think that I'm cool. Don't do that.
So, but yeah, we were all in the same group. It's like that TV series Freaks and Geeks. They totally nailed that. Like,
when I started comedy, I was like, oh, it's like marching band for adults. It's like, oh, this is where all the weirdos went. I was always wondering where we went.
This is where the marching band goes after high school.
Yeah. That's what it feels like sometimes. It's where all the misfits go.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah. There are a lot of misfits in our business for sure.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Let's get into the bombing part of this. I think I would love to hear your story of a time that you bombed or the show was just really bad.
So I've been thinking about this most of the day because I'm not trying to brag, but I've bombed a lot. And
so you're telling me you might be an authority in bombing.
I think for like the first 3 years of doing comedy, I'm probably 7 years
podcast
in.
Now.
Yeah, just every set was it just chipped a little bit of my soul out of my body.
Now, before you get into your story, I do have a quick follow-up because before we started recording, you said that you started out in North Carolina and you started. You said you started with improv or
yes?
Okay, so you did start with improv. Okay.
My biggest bombing story, actually, I was thinking about it today, is an improv story. There was an improv competition that I was in, and it was me and a friend of mine, Amanda, which she probably wouldn't be happy with me saying her name, but. We entered the competition. We got through on the first round. So it was the second round. And we're feeling kind of cocky, And we were both pretty new. Mm-hmm. And I was maybe 2 years into performing. I was like barely a company member, if that. No business being in this competition with these really awesome improvisers that have been doing it for decades.
I feel like, too, like with improv... an improv team is only as strong as its weakest player.
Oh, yeah.
Too. Like, that's the other thing. Sure. And that's why I don't do improv. Like, I've taken classes just because the training is good for stand-up.
It's amazing.
But I am not a good improviser, and every time I performed with the group, because at the end of the class we would have to do like a showcase or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so bad at this.
Well, and people say that, but if you find an improv group that's been together for like 8 years, they're gonna be sick. They're gonna be so good.
Well, and that's good.
And that's who you need to find.
They're also not probably taking members like me.
No.
Either. You know what I mean?
No, and you shouldn't be because you didn't do the work.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's hard in general to find a group of people that all have the same vision and all want to do the same thing. It's hard to find a sketch group. It's hard to find someone who wants to do a podcast, where you don't have to have guests. Like, it's hard to find someone to collaborate with you.
I know.
And that has the same drive. And
that always seems like the big demise of projects too. Is like, everybody, you get these big ideas or the demise of a collaboration. Because it's like at first everybody seems like they're on board and has the same vision, and then suddenly they don't, or they don't put the time in that they claimed that they were going to,
or they're not getting the results in the time that they thought they should.
I can definitely see that happening.
Yeah, and I think a lot of like improvisers and stand-ups, you get to the point where you're good, and then you're like, now what do I do with it? Because I think we all know that being funny doesn't mean too much.
No, I mean it definitely being funny definitely is a qualification, but it isn't like an end all be all to get you booked or get you places.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. It should be up higher on the scale or the level, list of qualifications, but it's really not.
It's not. Being funny is not at all. And like that's what I was saying, like, so for the competition that I did, you had to, like, your group had to go out there and do their own like made up game or whatever. And it was just 2-person improv. And we had made up a game that we like really couldn't get out of the scene. Like, we didn't give ourselves an out. Looking at it now as a seasoned performer, it's a really bad game that we made up. And in the middle of the performance, and like I said, this was me like 2 years in. So I didn't really know what a bomb was yet. I knew that there were good shows and bad shows and whatever, but this was the first time I had ever been on stage and not gotten a laugh the whole entire time that I was up there. Like, it was like 7 minutes of no laughter. And my best friend and her husband had came to see me perform for the first time.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and they were in Charleston for like their anniversary, so they were all dressed up. They went to dinner, and like they were gonna come. They were
doing the things.
Yeah, and
now I need to know: are they still together?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. They're married with kids and everything. It's amazing how little of an impact I had on anything ever in their lives.
And then like it would have been if after that they split up or something, it'd be like, yeah, that was a bomb. You like destroyed a marriage.
God, you know that feeling too when you just ate shit and they're like walking up to you after and you're like,
yeah, now I have to face these people. Yeah. And then I got to let them be condescending to me because they're my friends and they're going to try to, we're
so good. Oh my God, you're so funny. Yeah. Yeah. And like, not only was it bad, but it was like the worst team. You know what I mean? Like, it was like every other team, like I said, they're seasoned improvisers. They've been playing together for 8-9 years, some decades. We're brand new. Yep. We got through on a fluke because it was audience vote and they just liked us, So I went up there. We got into some weird scene about we were sisters and we were like hitting on each other. It was bad. Oh. So bad. It just got into
so uncomfortable.
Cringe, awkward town. And like, I remember getting off the stage, walking outside and like dry heaving in a bush. Like, I couldn't take how bad I just was. and I remember it just because it was the first time. It was the first time that I was just like gutted and was like, oh, wow. It was the first time that I had performed in front of a sold out audience. It was the worst performance I had ever had. And it just kind of like, it was this perfect storm of like, why do I even wake up in the morning? What's the point of it all? Oh, so bad. I think about it sometimes.
And sometimes the bombs like that are hard not to think about from time to time. Like you can never truly forget about
It's the
them.
people's eyes too.
Yeah.
When they're looking at you like.
The faces that they're making.
Yeah. I bombed pretty recently in Colorado Springs. And I bombed not only in front of the audience, but in front of most of the Colorado Springs comedians.
Oh, no.
The whole scene.
Oh, no.
I opened with something weird, and I think that's always what does it for me. That's what always starts the bomb, is opening with something weird.
Something weird.
And it's my own rule that you have to open with something tried and true. Like, you can't just open, even if it's a quick thing. Even if it's a quick 10-second
unless it's some really good observations about the venue or the room or
even
something,
that,
and even that can go bad.
I will do that, and I will do that sometimes, or commenting on what the last comic said, or that one show we did where there was that weird shadow that I did the blowjob thing that I couldn't handle it. I'll do stuff like that, but if it's a big show and it's not real crowd worky, it's there's a lot of people and it's Comedy Works or whatever, I guess I'm let me open with this weird thing that I'm thinking of. And I'm they don't know you yet,
Exactly.
They don't know me yet, So I'm coming out there maybe with something too strong or something too, I said something people were talking about how many Black people there were in the room. And I was Colorado Springs, and I was well, I drove from Boulder. I was this is the most Black people I've seen in a room in the past year, because it's Boulder, and it was weird, and everyone just kind of looked at me, and I was oh no, I'm a white girl, and I just said Black, and they don't like it.
And it's all downhill from here.
And it took me a while to realize that too, because I grew up in the South. You can say Black people in the South. Black people know they're Black is not racist. You can just say it. Yeah. It's okay. And here, I don't know if it's the wokeness or what it is, but it's a weird,
people respond differently.
Yeah, and it's not Black people; it's white people.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's a very weird thing here. I feel it's they're so woke, they're not. It's they
went so far left that they're just back.
Yeah, why?
They did a complete circle around the world.
Yeah, it's just so weird to me. I don't know. There was a when I first moved here, it was in Westminster. I was working at a trailer shop. It's a service center for your RV. And I said, there's a Black woman over there looking at the generators, and she needs help. I can't answer her questions. There's a lot of people in the store. It was crazy. It's an RV center in Colorado on a Saturday. It was nuts.
Yeah, pretty busy.
And I got written up. And I got talked to because I called her a Black woman.
Wow.
Yeah, they had a conversation with me and reprimanded me and told me that that's not that I should have picked a different descriptor.
Oh.
And I was okay.
And then were you I'm sorry, where I'm from,
yeah,
we're all fine with
it's okay. Do you know how many times I was called a white girl? And I'm not offended. I'm a white girl. She's a Black woman. There's lots of other things that I could see that there would be a problem me calling her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot worse.
It was a very confusing day for me. I was oh my God, am I racist? This is crazy. Oh my God.
I don't even know what's happening
anymore. I was freaking out. I remember it so clearly because it was a few days later, and I was that white bitch was trying to fucking talk, and I was I am not racist.
Trying to put that on you.
Yeah, I was it's just a descriptor. So funny. Yeah.
Well, I also think part of that, what matters is the tone and the intent behind it too. Yes, it's a descriptor, but it could be somebody could perceive it as being racist if your tone or intent behind it, how you use it. You know what I mean? But,
and I think
in your case, that wasn't the case. But but I mean. People are weird.
But that's how it is with everything. That's how it is with the cancel culture thing that's happening right now. People just take words out of context or, take someone being ironic or, they're
all
not,
the things.
Yeah. And I'm you take this little sound clip and you make it sound so bad. And it's are people fooled by that anymore? Do you think regular people are fooled by that?
I think to some extent they are.
Yeah.
I mean, because there are people that, I mean, the internet loves getting up in arms about anything. That's the thing. It's not whether they believe it or not. I think it goes into, oh, they just want to be part of this group. They want to be part of this group. So it's like, oh, somebody releases a clip out of context, especially like for a celebrity, and then people are just like, they're the worst, and they want to band together on the internet and try to take them down. So to me, I feel like it's them wanting to be, like in a group and
for sure,
and have that feeling of acceptance. They're part of something. When
I just don't see
it. It's a stupid thing to be a part of.
It's a stupid thing to be a part of, and I don't see it a lot in real life.
No, you don't see it a lot in real life. It's mostly just on the internet.
Yeah.
And the internet is mostly just made up of bored people, sitting at home with nothing better to do. And so that gives them a little bit of excitement in their life. They're like, oh, this is my excitement right now.
I always think about that too, because I don't think a lot of comics think about, like, a lot of people that you see at comedy shows. This might be the only comedy show they go to all year.
It may be the only comedy show they go in their whole life.
Right.
That's the other thing.
Exactly.
Because, I forget what the stat was, and this was a while ago, but I read a stat somewhere about comedy and how, like, an average person only goes to, like, 1.5 shows their whole life.
I walked out.
Yeah. Exactly. They went to one, then they went to a second, and they only lasted half the show.
Yeah, that's enough of this. Yeah, that's enough of this.
Enough of this. I'm done. And then never came back again. But even like when you see like comedy clubs that are open, rarely. I mean, there are regulars. Like I know people who are regular comedy fans, and I've seen like in different places that I lived where they would go almost every week. Like that was their thing. Every Friday they're going to the comedy show. Doesn't matter who's performing. Yeah. That's their thing. They go watch comedy on Friday or whatever it is. But for the most part, that's very far and few between.
Yeah. They're probably really joyful people too.
Yeah, exactly. But most shows and clubs, people typically that are there probably maybe been to one other comedy show, if that, or and same with comedy clubs. They're just rotating audiences over and over, and only a handful of people are coming back.
When I do have a good bomb, like a solid bomb, like I don't know, there's this guy in I think it was in Iowa when I was doing with Jeff Cohen. He did a show that was so bad. It was just a bad show. And then it wasn't any of the comics' fault. It was just drunk college kids screaming. They paid the money to drink. They didn't pay the money to watch the show. It was just bad. And this guy walked by and was like, oh, you tried your best, just being a fucking dick. And I think it makes me feel good if any comics listening and you bomb, like, they have to go home to their fucking boring lives and fuck their ugly wife and fucking watch their stupid TV shows and go to their fucking unfulfilling job and plan their stupid fucking vacations with their god-awful kids. And, like, we get to do this cool thing.
Yeah.
Like, so fuck them. You know what I mean?
It's like tomorrow we get to wake up and think about where we're going to go do comedy next.
Yeah. Like, we get to do this cool thing. And, like, sometimes it sucks. And sometimes it, like, makes your stomach hurt and you're nervous. And, sometimes you have a crowd that's just not on your side. But, like, we get to do this cool fucking thing. And they don't.
Yep. I think, and it's interesting that you're talking about that. Because I've been watching. I know I'm way late to this, people listening. But I've been watching I'm Dying Up Here, that Showtime series that came out a couple years ago. And you see a lot of, like, they did a very good job of capturing what it is to, like, the life of a comedian and the different personas and characters within comedy. And but capturing that life of, like, oh, this is, it may not be the greatest job for security, but it's a lot better than living a regular life,
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, and it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't like saying I'm a comedian because I don't think I'm a comedian. I feel like until you buy a house with comedy and comedies, that's it, But I do comedy.
That's you got high standards on what it is to be a comedian.
Yeah.
Because, if that was the true tried and true standard, not many people would be able to call themselves comedians.
Well, I try not to call myself anything. Like, I mean, I do accounting work. I do, whatever. I feel like identities are weird. And once you cling to one identity and you lose it, then you've almost lost who you are.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
You know? So I feel like a lot of comics...
Sure you're not a therapist?
I could be.
I was going to say, you got a pretty good perspective on things.
I've been going for a while. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anything you hear me say that's like healthy and good, I got from therapy.
I stole from my therapist.
Yeah, I'm slowly changing as a person, and I'm getting from therapy. Like, please understand that I've also been like very suicidal. I have incredible depression and anxiety, and I think a lot of good comics
which is
do.
very surprising because at least my interactions with you, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier. You only see the surface. You don't see what's underneath it. And because in our very few interactions that I've had with you, you always seem so positive and happy and like just bubbly. Like I wouldn't think that, oh, this person goes home and thinks about taking themselves out. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
oh yeah.
But it goes exactly what you're saying.
For sure.
You don't see that. You only see what's being presented. You
Absolutely.
don't know what's underneath.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it'll hit me out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because if I do 4 or 5 days because I have a full-time job, 40 hours a week. And then if I have 4 or 5 shows, every single night, and you're not stopping.
Yeah.
Like your brain's not stopping, and you're not meditating. Like if I'm not taking care of myself, I feel like I'm just giving myself to the audience. I'm just giving myself to people. I'm not taking care of myself. I think a lot of comics think about their act and they think about like, okay, well, I'm going to try to do this better. And I said this, and I think this will be funnier, and I'll do that. And I'll, and they kind of are like selling themselves. Who am I up there? What am I doing? And like, I've kind of changed my perspective in the last year on it to where like, this is my gift. Not everybody can do it. This is not everybody was blessed with this ability to make people laugh.
Not everybody has the courage to try.
Yeah, right? So every time I get the opportunity to, it's like me giving my gift to the audience and me getting out of my own way to give my gift to the world and to, so if I look at it like that, it's a little less... You know what I mean? It's a little less of this ego-driven, like, the bottom line is no one's going to be me when we get there. No one's going to have my jokes. No one's going to have my vibe. If I'm talking about a story about my mom, no one's going to have that. And not everyone in the audience is going to react to me, But if there's that one lady... that's like, oh my God, you're so funny. That's amazing. Like, it's fucking awesome. Like,
it's a great feeling.
It's
it is. I've had that actually just this week. 2 times somebody has come up to me after. One was after an open mic, and I was just hosting. It wasn't like a big deal. But
right.
They, came up and we were talking, and they're like, "Man, you really make that look natural." And I was like, "Well, that's that makes me feel good because I've been doing this a long time, and it, I'm trying really hard to do this, do what I'm doing."
Yeah.
So when somebody comes up and is like, "Oh, that you were very, seem very natural, and you made being funny look natural," I'm like, "Oh, good," because it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was
for sure.
13 years of hard work.
Well, and I think my goal is to be even. My goal is emotional regulation to be even at all times. So if something really good happens, I'm trying to stay the same as if something really bad happens.
Oh, absolutely. And that's
I think about that with comedy.
Yeah.
Because you can get that big show, and then you can also get that little show that you're like, I don't want to drive to it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And then your performance kind of lacks because you get that, you put that negativity in your energy, and then that's the energy you give off. And
then you turn into the Sam Talent guy, in the book. Like,
the character. Yeah.
After reading that book, I was like, oh, I don't want to be that, Yeah. And like, you see those people
all the time.
Yeah. And like, I aspire to be, headliner and do well, and like I want to have more material, and I want to work on my material, and I love it. It's great, But
I
like,
love comedy. It makes me go.
But I'm not gonna step on anybody's face to do it, and I'm not gonna. There's some people. There's some amazing comedians that you have never heard of and you will never see, and there's some dog shit comedians that you will never fucking stop seeing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. I
would say
some of the funniest comedians that I've ever interacted with, the world will never know.
Yeah.
They're like these seasoned road people, and they are like good, phenomenal at comedy.
Amazing.
But they either didn't want to move to one of the places where you had to go to get discovered. Now it's a lot easier because the internet and social media, you don't have to live. you can live wherever you want and reach an audience.
Yeah.
And that's great. But there was a time when that wasn't the case. And I know, like, when I started, the internet had been around for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. So not very long, but
right.
It wasn't like you could really use social media, anything like that. I mean, Facebook just started, not long before. That was the time of MySpace and Facebook or whatever. But getting discovered, you either had to go like LA or New York or whatever. And if you didn't do that, you could still make a decent living doing comedy. But some of those comics are the ones that are like so good, like they are, because they put the time in to perform in front of different audiences. And I think that's something that's very, very important is as you see this when you in scenes. I mean, you'll see it. You've been in this scene a lot longer than I have, so you probably seen it here, where comics do really well in the scene and they're killing all over Denver, but as soon as they get outside the city limits, they're eating
done.
shit.
And they don't take those shows either.
Yep.
They won't do it after a while.
Yep, and then that makes it so you don't. I feel like you don't get better as a comedian. I feel like you need to have those experiences because you need to learn from them.
I lived in Austin for a year and came back, and it made me a better comic. Just being in Austin for a year made me a better comic. Yeah, because
I feel like that's one thing that's helped me too. I've been in a couple different scenes, and so I've got to see. And because even though comedy, as a whole, it's, the whole principle of comedy is the same. It's go write a joke, make people laugh. That's the same wherever. But you get different forms and different types of people in different areas. And so it's interesting to see, Denver versus Minneapolis versus San Diego, like the differences. I mean, there's a lot of similarities within scenes. There's a lot of the same types of people, shit happens or whatever, but there's still a lot of differences
which is why it's crazy to me that someone in a local scene can have a solid 20 minutes and is like, I'm ready to hit the road, I'm gonna go out on the road. And I'm like, if you have a solid 20 minutes in your scene, you probably have a solid 5 out on the road. And that was always me. Like, I always, if I had a solid 10, I would tell people I had 5, because if they weren't digging the first or second joke, I had to pivot, you know. And I started in Boulder. In my first show in Colorado Springs, I ate so much shit because they're just a raunchier, louder, rowdier crowd than Boulder, So I was doing all these safe jokes. And then I get to Colorado Springs and they don't like me at all, And then my second set, I was at 3E's and I was doing 2 sets. So like my second set, I was like, let me just do all my disgusting stuff that never works in Boulder. And it worked. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think that's when I first started figuring out. I was like, oh, I can be the same me doing the same jokes in different rooms. And I eat shit in one room and the other room loves me, you know? And then I finally, I was like, as we all learn and grow and peek behind the curtain and keep peeking. There's so many more curtains. Once you peek
just
behind,
layers of curtains.
It's just so many curtains, and they're all different colors.
And then eventually you just get to the black abyss.
Yeah, oh for sure, where nothing really matters, and you're like, why am I doing any of this? But yeah, and then you realize how many comics there are and how many people are trying to do it, and then you just get that decision fatigue of, do I go on the road or do I try to produce my own show, or do I, how do I monetize this in some way, and I've had so many, I'm sure you had too, people reaching out to you for shows.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just in the last day, in the last 24 hours, I've had 2 to 3 people reaching out to me.
And there's some of them are great. When I was a producer and I reached out for a show, I was like, this is where it is. This is how much time I need. This is how much money it is. Do you want to do it? And that was it.
And that's what I do.
Right?
I tell people, when they reach out, I say, well, these are the shows we have. This is what we do. And fortunately, for a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now that I've lived here in Loveland, Jeff handles most of the booking.
Right.
So I usually just like, well, you got to talk to Jeff anyway. I mean, I am booking some of our shows now, but they're not quite consistent enough yet to where I can I have this show on a regular basis.
Well,
but outside of that, our regular shows, he does the booking, so I can push people there. But even so, when somebody comes up, I'm like, well, these are the shows we have.
Yeah.
We do it this day and this day. These are our shows. If you're coming through, we can probably get you on, but we're not going to do a special show for you. Like when people hit me up and they're like, hey, you want to help me? Can you help me do a show there?
Yeah.
Like I can maybe, if the dates align right, you can do the show that I already do, but I'm not going to do a special show for you because then I have to do all the work. I have to do all the marketing, put all the time and effort and all this stuff, and then my resources, and then I'm the one that's at risk of losing, and all the things. So it's like,
and is your name gonna put asses in the seats? Like, is your name gonna do that?
yeah, well, exactly.
Exactly,
yeah.
And like, I have people that are reaching out to me sometimes, and they're like, "Can you headline?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've got a solid 30." Well, do you have 45? I'm like, I just told you I have a solid 30. If you need a headliner that can do 30, I got you.
Yeah,
And
I think that's very commendable, being honest like that up front, because a lot of comics aren't. You ask them if they can do something, and they're just like, yeah. They'll have 5 minutes of material, and like, hey, can you headline? Oh, yeah. I got a solid hour. I've been doing comedy 5 minutes.
Well, and it's crazy. Like, I'll tell them too, like, especially if it's out of town or something. My husband and I, we can perform together. I could do a half hour, he could do a half hour, and then we can go up there together and do another half hour like that. We've done that before. So, like, we can fill some time.
Well, that's the route to do.
Yeah.
Where you can, each do time and then do time together.
We got to do that in Austin. A friend of ours that runs South Austin Comedy Club. We were there on a Wednesday, and it was kind of a slow whatever. And he was like, "Do you guys want to go up for 10 minutes at the end?" And we were like, "No, we've never done that before." And he's like, "Just do it. It'll be fun." Because it was just regulars that were there. Yeah. And it was a blast. We had a good time because we talk about each other on stage. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like you get my side, you get his side, and then we go up there and we kind of riff off of each other a little bit.
And I think you just, whether you're already thinking about this or not, you really just figured out how you can monetize on comedy.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to, because you don't have to put as much effort into it either, as far as making sure you have a solid hour. You can present a whole show where it's broke up.
Right.
Then.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I was going with my comedy career in general, because I was like, I don't want to travel alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't want to.
Well, and for women, that's got to be insanely scary to be traveling alone for comedy. Well, traveling alone anywhere, really.
I travel a lot. I used to run camper vans across the country. So, like, I've traveled a lot. I've slept in Walmart parking lots. It's not a big deal for me, but it's also lonely. And it's like, and it's a lot on your body and your mind. And being alone for that long, in a car, it'll fuck with you.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, you brought up Sam's book. I mean,
that's
a good example of that.
Exactly.
Being alone in a car.
Well, and it's just like so many comics are like, oh, I have this goal that I'm doing 27 spots in a month in 23 different cities. And I'm like, why? Why is that your goal?
I mean, have that goal. And what's funny to me about that, like, I definitely think, try to encourage people to go to other scenes and other areas, because that's how you're going to get better at comedy. But at the same time, I'm like, when you're in an area where you have so much good comedy that you don't need to go on the road like that, why? Why not take advantage and get really good?
That's what I did. That's what I did here. Like, when I first started out, Tobias booked me on a lot of stuff that was like, Byers and, Loveland and Greeley. And like, those were the rooms that I built my act. And then after COVID, I started getting into Denver a little bit. And everyone was like, "Oh my God, you're funny." And I'm like, "I've been funny. I've been funny for a long time. I just didn't want you guys to see me getting funny." And I think I probably spent way more time than I should have, like, being scared to reach out for shows and stuff. Yeah. But I think I saw this a lot in Austin, where people want the lifestyle, they want the fame, they want the followers, but they don't want to do the work. And I'm like, it's like they've already found their voice, but they haven't written any jokes, like they know know who they want to be up there, like it, and I'm so jealous of it. I'm jealous of the unearned confidence that some of these people have. It's not fair.
I don't know if I would call it unearned confidence so much as I would call it delusion.
Okay. It's like there's like so many different groups and what kind of comic you want to be, and I just don't want to be in that unearned confident delusional group.
I'm going to pay my dues, do the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's with comedy too, though. People don't understand that about comedy is that it's not, I mean, there are very few instances of overnight fame and success. Yeah. And even those where it seems like it's overnight, it's not. They've been around for a long time. Like a good example just happened with Matt Rife.
Yeah.
You know, he just blew up and he just sold out his tour.
Yeah.
And all these things. And it seems like, you know, from a perspective, just because, you know, nobody really knew who he was, they think, oh, well, he's just an overnight success. No, he's been doing this for a long time. Yeah. And, you know, in addition to that, he's been on TV and movies and things like he's been building a career. He's not an overnight success.
That was one of the funniest conversations I had with my husband, because I remember walking in the house and I was like, why is everybody so mad at Matt Rife? And he was like, oh, because he sold out his tour. And I was like, then...
And isn't that what we're all trying to do, too?
I was sitting there looking at him and I was like, yeah, but...
Isn't that the goal?
Why are we mad at him though? I don't get it. I was like, I truly was so confused as to what the hate was. Like, he's a funny guy who I've seen him perform. I think he's hilarious.
We mentioned it earlier, projecting those jealousy because for one, he's funny and good looking. and that's a double threat.
Yeah, that pisses people off. That pisses people off for sure. I get it.
It's like pretty people, you have everything else. Leave comedy to us Uggs.
That's so true.
Don't take it from us.
It's so true. It's like people who are mad because they're ugly and stupid. That makes sense.
Let me have my one thing.
Yeah. I seriously remember like scrolling and being like, why is everyone so mad at Matt Rife? What did he do? I honestly thought he did something. I assumed that something happened.
Right? That's the first thing you think when you see that much hate towards somebody. You're just like, oh, they did something really bad. Really horrific. And then it's like...
I was like, oh no, he's canceled. What did he do?
And then it's like, oh, he sold out a tour.
They're like, oh, what? He's hot and popular. And I'm like, oh, what a fucking asshole.
Horrific. That monster.
Like, I mean,
how dare you be pretty and funny?
Inherently, I hate attractive, successful people. I get it.
Yeah.
But I was like, we got to pick something. You know, you can't just hate them because they're attractive and successful. You have to pick something so we don't sound vapid.
Yeah,
you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like, can't he like run over a dog or something? We got to pick something.
Yeah, exactly. Know? It's got to be, you know, did he kick a puppy?
Yeah.
On his way up to his fame? Because, you know, that's what we can be mad about.
Exactly. Like,
how many puppies did he step on to get where he is?
Like, we can't just say that we're mad because he's popular and hot. Like, that's not how this works. We have to pick something.
But that's the thing. That's how it does. That's with comedians. Anytime.
Yeah.
It's funny because we, you know, as comedians, we all want that. And then if somebody does get it, and then it appears that they got it in an easy way,
right?
We get real, you know, a lot of comedians get pissed off about it. But it wasn't, that's the thing. It wasn't overnight. Just because nobody really knew who he was, that doesn't take away from him having a career already, like working on that. You know,
he was already doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same thing with, we were talking about earlier how, you know, there's so many comedians you never heard of because there are so many comedians out there. The same thing.
There's so many. Well, and there's so many improv groups and there's so many talented
it's like
people.
He just broke out. That's all that happened. It wasn't overnight. It was probably 10, 15 years of, you know, grinding and doing the things. And he's
doing the thing. Like,
oh, absolutely.
He's posting the clips and doing the thing. Like,
oh, absolutely.
I don't want to do the thing.
Yeah.
The thing sounds fucking exhausting.
It does sound very exhausting. Just thinking about it and I'll go in spurts where I'll edit a bunch of clips and then try to release one or two a day for like 2 weeks in a row or something. And then I'm just like, I can't sit one day a week and just do this editing. But I've been looking at maybe outsourcing some of that.
Yeah.
So I see some other comics that are, you know, trying to earn some extra money and doing the freelance stuff.
And for the captioning.
Captioning and doing some of the editing and stuff. And I'm like, I might take advantage of that.
For sure.
And I was going to, even with the podcast too, because that's another thing. I take all this video, but I don't ever do anything with the video because I really don't have time. I'm trying to do comedy and I got a job that I got to do and I got, you know, a life and I got all these other things. I just don't have time to do everything. And so I got to pick and choose what I want to do. And at the bottom of that list is sit at my computer and edit all day.
Yeah, and I can't think of anything worse than watching me doing comedy. I
would disagree with that. You're very funny.
No, you watching me do comedy, great. Me watching me do comedy, oh my God, it makes me insane. I hate it so much. I have jokes that I've written that I keep doing, and I don't know why they're funny. I don't get it. I'm like, all right.
I hate when that happens.
I guess if they like it.
Yeah, exactly. I hate when that happens. I've had that where I'll think of something really stupid, like just random fleeting thought, and then I'll say it on stage, and it's really as a joke, and it's really funny, and the crowd loves it. And then I'll have this other joke that I put a lot of time and energy into making it very detailed and elaborate, and all the things that I worked so hard, and then they just don't like it. And then I'm just like,
every audience in Austin, Texas, every single one, I would be like, oh, let me try this perfectly crafted joke. Okay, we'll just talk about my butt. Let's go. They just were not having it. I'm like, all right.
That's funny.
You win.
You win. I'll give you what you want.
Talk about butt stuff.
Here
Let's
you
go.
Well, I want to get into some of these. We're going to start wrapping up, but I want to ask you a couple things before we get out of here. Now, when it comes to like when you're on stage and you tell a joke that doesn't land, or you feel like you're starting to lose your audience, you feel like you're going down to start to bomb.
Yeah.
What goes in your mind? What comes through your mind in the moment, and what are things you try to do to deviate to make sure to win the audience back?
To win the audience back. I do have a handful of tried and true jokes that I think every comic should have that they pivot to if a joke isn't working. I'm pretty good, like we were talking about, solid opener, solid closer, and then play in the middle. Like if I have new stuff that I'm working on, I'll make sure that they like me first. Because I feel like if they like you, then you can kind of say whatever you want.
Yeah. I believe that 100%. I've always I'm in that belief system that if they trust you and they like you, you can pretty much say whatever you want after that.
Yes. And I try my comedy and my joke writing and just who I am as a person is very personal, and it's very storytelling, and it's very, this is what happened to me. And I like writing from that perspective because not anybody can take that away from me. You know what I mean? Like they can't take away my personality and who I am. They can take a clever joke, right? You know, if I wrote a joke really clever, they can take that, but they can't take like the personal part of it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, so I try to focus on that. And if I, like you said, if I'm bombing and I can feel it, I can feel they're not with me, I will acknowledge it sometimes, you know, or I'll ask. I've been getting to the point where I ask, like why. I stopped a show the other, like about a year ago. I think about it a lot. There was an old man sitting there with his arm crossed, and he was just not giving me anything. And I just stopped, and I was like, why aren't you happy right now? What's going on? You know? Yeah. And I'm like, what do you not like about this? You know? And then I was mean because he was kind of rude. But I was like, at what point did you decide you weren't going to accept any more information? I was like, at what point were you like, elastic waistbands? That's it. You know? So I went in on him pretty hard. But I will do that sometimes. I'll go into the audience and I'll ask them, especially if it's a joke that's maybe they think it's sad or mean, you know? I'm like, why do you think that's mean? What if I used this word? I kind of workshop it sometimes on stage.
Yeah.
Just to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, what if I would have said this without him in? Would you
see what their
liked
reaction
that?
is?
Yeah. Which it's like, I think it's a funny thing when you get further into comedy where you're doing longer sets where you can do that a little more, you know? Yeah. If I've got 5 minutes and it didn't work, on the next one.
Yeah. Moving on.
Right. But if I'm like in a 20-minute set and I'm trying to, you know, figure out why it's not working. I also, I ask myself a lot if I'm trying to push an agenda or if I'm trying to make them laugh.
Oh, that's a really good perspective and way to look at that.
Yeah. Because that's could be the reason they're not laughing because I'm trying to push an agenda and they think I'm trying to sway them.
Yep.
And as stupid as audiences are, and they are, sometimes. No, like I think I don't think audiences are stupid, but I think that, we've all seen the comics go up there and just do the hacky magic trick bullshit.
Yeah.
And you're just like, God, stop laughing at this.
My soul's dying inside. A little piece of me dies every time I see it.
Yeah. It's like,
my comedy soul's just getting ripped apart anytime I see that.
Yeah. And we could all do that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can all do that. We know we know the tricks. Anybody who's taken a stand-up comedy class, they learned how to write a joke, and they can go up there and they can da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and everybody laughs. And if you want to do that route, by all means, like I always tell people, like, don't take comedy advice from anybody, especially me. Just don't. Just don't,
So this last hour that we've been talking, anything she said, don't listen to it. None of these great perspectives that she's had, don't listen.
No. Take what you want and leave the rest.
Yeah.
Well, when I was a young comic, I took so much bad advice from people that I shouldn't have taken.
Well, for me, I think it's, listen to advice, but don't necessarily apply it. If that makes sense, because it's you do get a lot of bad advice, and trying to determine what's good and what's bad. That can be hard itself. But if somebody wants to take the time to try to help you, and I even take this when people want to, because comics will get so. Their ego gets so, like, they get full of their ego that when another comic or a newer comic comes up to them and wants to tell them, an idea that they had for them or, like, a tag, they get all, like, bent out of shape about it. And it's like, why? Just hear them out. You don't have to, you can still be nice to them. Let them say what they want to say. Listen to that, and then not do it. Because you don't have to apply, but you don't have to be a dick to them if they're trying to be helpful.
Steal their tag and tell everybody you wrote it. Who fucking cares? You know what I mean? Just be nice.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that I don't know why comics worry about. Like, if I give somebody a tag, I don't want credit for their act.
No.
I'm not. If they use that tag and it's working really well for their joke, and then suddenly they record an album or a TV special or whatever it is, I'm not trying to get a writing credit out of that. And I don't think anybody really is. It's a different because even if there are comics that have writers, and they will get credit when they do specials,
Oh, yeah.
But they're paying them for that. And I mean, and that's kind of a different scenario. But like, if you're working with a group of people or, whatever it is, or just you give somebody a tag, like, I don't think they're gonna come back and be like, hey, I better get a writing credit if you get famous.
One of my biggest openers in my jokes right now, or what I do, is my name is Mandy, and yes, that is short for Anthony. And Sherrod wrote that. And if I make $1 million off of that, he's not getting a fucking dime. And I'm saying it right here. And I don't care.
On forever recorded in the world. I hope.
And Sherrod calls me weird names all the time. The other day he called me Mandrew Garfield. I don't know. He calls me crap like that all the time, and I will say it on stage, and I don't care. Like,
that actually reminds me, I got to follow up with him. I've been trying to get him on the podcast
he's
as
great.
well.
He's great.
And,
Sherrod's great. He's
we just
so
haven't
fun.
lined it up
But
yet.
yeah, like, why wouldn't you want your friends to write tags for you or write jokes for you?
Oh, exactly.
Who cares?
Yeah.
And they know your material. Like, you're so in it. And they're an outside perspective.
And sometimes that's
awesome.
What we need is an outside perspective.
Like, Selma Zaki has helped me, like, a handful of times. Like, she'll come up to me and be like, I want to know more about, and she'll, like, pick a little part. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think to expand on that part. And that's like, why? Why? What am I going to tell her? Shut the fuck up?
Yeah,
you
right.
know,
I
like,
mean, you could. There are comics that would.
That's crazy.
Where I'm like, why?
That's crazy. Especially someone like her who I respect. You know what I mean? If you come up to me and you just ate shit and I've never seen you do good and you're trying to tag my jokes, okay. But
again,
I'll still listen to you.
Same scenario, and even in that scenario, you can still be nice to that person, hear what they have to say, and just because they bomb doesn't mean they're not a good joke, right? That tag might still be a good tag for you,
I have to see somebody a handful of times before I determine.
Yeah, well, but I'm just saying that sometimes people they can write a good joke, but they can't necessarily perform.
Oh, for sure.
And so, like, you can be a good joke writer, but not a good performer, And so seeing somebody bomb doesn't necessarily take away that they might not be good at writing a joke. I mean, In the whole realm of reality, though,
or that
usually
they could help
it's
you.
A good sign.
Yeah, or that's
it is
true.
Usually a pretty good indicator, but
9 times out of 10. But you can still be nice.
Exactly.
There's no reason
for
you not to be nice to somebody. I hate it. I hate the ego of the comic. It's just like, you have nothing to give me. I've been through the streets.
I've been on these streets my entire life.
Like, shut up. And that fucking open mic girl will come smoke you on stage. Watch them do it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my favorite.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, when that happens.
Yeah.
When they ridicule them and then they outperform them. It's funny. Oh, that's great. Well, you talked a little bit about your writing, and kind of how you try to write personal stuff. What's your writing process like, and what's an evolution of a joke for you as far as you come up with an idea until this is definitely going in the act?
I don't write, first of all. I rarely will write out a joke. I've done that a handful of times, and I've noticed that it sucks all the fun out of it for me. So I don't write out my jokes. I usually write punchlines. Most of my set lists are just punchlines, and I kind of know where I need to get to them and how I need to get to them. A lot of my stuff, I will write a separate joke and then I'll be like, oh no, that's a tag to this joke. Or they're very incestuous to where they'll like weave into each other. If I've been doing a joke that I'm so bored with, I can't do it anymore. Like, I can't say the words anymore. It's just not authentic. I'll try to put my favorite part of it in a different joke. I have a line that I had in this whole other joke that I was like, in the 90s, if you were walking down the hallway in high school, if you were a chunky girl walking down the hallway carrying your flute, just nothing good happened. And like, I found that I can put that line into several other jokes, and they kind of, I can almost like tag them together if I'm trying to make like a cohesive 20-minute set, and not have any crazy transitions where I'm switching topics too much. I'll weave those together. Mostly I write on stage though. And I hate it, but it's the only way I can do it.
I'm kind of I'm similar in the sense where I don't physically write. I usually work things out in my head before I take it on stage, but then on stage is where I like start to hone it in. But
there's sometimes that I'll have an idea and I'll think about it too much, and then when I get on stage it's too jumbled. So I've been trying to lately not think about it as much until I get up there.
Oh, yeah.
Because what I'm playing with...
Do you find that helps?
Yeah. What I'm playing with right now, and I did it last night. So I did a run of shows in Austin for a week, and then I took a week off and I didn't perform at all. And then last night was the first time I had gotten on stage after Austin and, not performing for a week, which is quite a good chunk of time.
Yeah, chunk for time. Yeah. And I just want to throw in here real quick, if you're listening, don't be afraid to take some breaks.
Yeah, I encourage it. I'm taking a break this month. I'm only doing like 5 shows this month.
They'll like, people in comedy are like, oh, you gotta be performing every day or you're never gonna get better, and that's not true. You also need to think about your mental health and physical health and all those things.
If I'm doing like 2 weeks where I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got 15 shows, I'll plan for a week where I'm not performing at all.
Yep.
So that's what I did. And like getting up there last night, I just put my 2 weeks in at work. So I wanted to talk about that. And there was like a handful of other things that I was like, oh, that's funny. That's funny. So I didn't write a set. It's 10 minutes posting. Went up there, just go up there, with it. Just do it, And I'm finding that the more I get out of the way and I let
it happen
and just have fun, the better, the more confidence I have, and the more the audience resonates with it, and they feel like they're with me, especially if I talk about, like, oh my God, it didn't rain today, or, I used to think that was so stupid. Like, I used to think that was so dumb, but like, if you like make them feel like they were with you all day, or like they were with your day,
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like.
Well, and that's a good way to like establish, connection with people too, because I mean, that's really what you got to do for comedy, in order, is having some kind of a connection or being relatable.
Well, and that's every comic's different. Every comic's journey is different. Every, like I remember talking to Carl Pekin, and I was like, the way that I do comedy would not work for him because he's like, my ego's too high. Like, I can't go up there. And my ego's nothing. I have no ego. It's so low. Like, I have like no self-esteem, and I'm like slowly getting it. And it's really cool. I understand why people like it. It's really fucking cool. Self-esteem is like really, I don't know if I could speak enough about it.
Confidence is sexy.
It's amazing
It's really,
to be like, oh, they like me. It took me a while in my comedy to realize it wasn't my jokes. It was me. It's not, everybody has a bidet joke. Everyone has a Spirit Airlines joke. Everyone has a joke about their mom. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's only like a handful of things we can all really talk about. And at the end of the day, they like you, you know, and it's not what you're saying. I could go up there and say, I could do Richard Pryor's set. you know what I mean? Like, but it wouldn't work for me because it's not my voice and it's not who I am. So it's just like, I think with my writing, I try to think about that. And I this sounds silly too, but I'm Southern and I write from a place of y'all. Hey, y'all. What's going on, y'all? I try to make it conversational. I try to make it like, we're in this together. I'm your friend and we're talking, which sucks after shows because people will come up to me and want to be your friend. And they'll think they think that we're friends.
Backfires.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh no. But I like watching that kind of comedy too. So.
Oh, yeah, that's great. All right, well, we are gonna start wrapping up. So I love at the end of the show, we talk about bombing mostly for the show. So at the end of the show, I love hearing a story of a favorite gig that you've done in your career.
Me and my husband just did Barrels and Amps in Georgetown, Texas, and it was the funnest show ever. Like, it was the first place we went to in Texas that was properly AC'd, because nobody turns on their AC in Texas. And it was one of those shows where the producer was like, this is going to be a light night. There's really not going to be a lot of people. It's going to be, whatever. And it turned out to be so much fun. And the audience was amazing. And I got like 10 followers after that. And they came, like, everyone was talking to me afterwards about the sets and talking to me and Ian about, just being married and like congratulating us on being married and stuff. And it was like one of those shows where, I don't know, it was like pretty packed and it was like a show and like stage and shit, but it felt like you were just hanging out in someone's basement. And I just fucking love those shows where you can actually connect with people. And a couple of those people saw us the next day. We went to see his sister do an improv show, and they like ran up to us and was like, "Oh my God, are you guys performing tonight?" And like losing their minds when they saw us. And that's fun when you can actually like be friends with audience members and they don't scare you.
Very important. Yeah. Very important not to scare you. All right, final question. This is probably the most important one. We have the Art of Bombing Get Pumped playlist. It doesn't have to be a song that gets you pumped to do comedy, but just a song that gets you pumped. What's a song you would add to the playlist?
Ladies First. Ladies First. Queen Latifah, Moni Love. That's my pump up song. Yeah. It's a good
awesome. One. All right, well, this has been fantastic. Where do you want to direct people to? Even though you don't do anything on social media, as you've said, you don't put in the effort.
Yeah. If you guys want to see where I'm performing, you can go to mandykcomedy.com. And when I update it, my shows are there.
When I do a very minimum part of the work.
Yes. And I'll be at Comedy Works New Faces coming here soon in August, and yeah, I do stuff.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks. This was awesome. Yeah, this was fun.
This has been a Dan Bublitz comedy production.